Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope everybody's doing fantastic out there. You made it, everybody. We're on the doorstep of Miami Heat camp. You got Media Day tomorrow, Monday, whenever you're watching this. I'm recording this on Sunday night after the 4 o'clock slate's just wrapped up in the NFL. And there was some NBA news that we want to get to here that had a little bit of a Heat wrinkle to it. Obviously, dealing with a rival, making a big trade. Miami Heat makes everybody nutty because the Heat are just going into this training camp, no big moves. And also, the Heat were apparently they were apparently notified in this trade. They were asked if they wanted to get into the game. So we'll get into that here in just a second. We'll be live tomorrow. The Tobin and Leroy show will be live from Media Day for 4 hours. So we will see who stops by, who comes by the old dressing room, as has become one of our fun traditions here on the show. So we hope to get a bevy of guys there for you. Hope to have a lot of fun there for you for Media Day. I believe the Heat's YouTube page is also streaming all of the major press conferences tomorrow. So you guys should get plenty of coverage, as we had a hell of a weekend with the Canes miracle holding on by the skin of their tush out of bounds to keep it incomplete on a Hail Mary. And the Miami Dolphins, of course, getting ready for Monday Night Football. Excuse me. So let's get to this trade. So the big trade that happened this weekend was the New York Knicks and Minnesota Timberwolves traded Julius Randle and Karl-Anthony Towns. So they are swapping power forwards, essentially. And Donte Divincenzo is also going to the Minnesota Timberwolves. He's apparently not very much into this Villanova thing, so they've finally gotten away from turning the Knicks into a frat house. And they, I believe, are also going to get a first-round pick from the Timberwolves in this whole ordeal. So Minnesota will also receive a top 2025 top 13 protected pick from the Knicks, which is a pick they got from the Pistons. And apparently there's going to be the Hornets in this trade as well to finish it. It's not done yet, but everything is pointing in the direction this will be a trade that happened. So there's two routes we could go here. One, we could go the Heat route. We could go, what is the repercussions for this in the East? I think I'll start repercussions in the East first. Okay. First off, the Knicks are taking a swing. You know, we have talked about the Miami Heat sitting here and what they have had around Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo for what's going now into their 6th season together. And they have done the big swing really one time, giving Kyle Lowry a heap of money, signing PJ Tucker to essentially a 1-year deal with an option. And the rest of it has been buoyed by just great scouting, drafting, of filling in the roles and the cracks around. They have been able to bring in a Kevin Love, who's obviously added a lot of locker room morale, has provided a big offensive punch off the bench. And then last year, of course, the Kyle Lowry thing ran its course. They trade for Terry Rozier. We don't really know the ceiling of that. That's a bit of a mystery. But the Knicks, they had a year last year where they were the 2 seed. They finished by the 2 seed by a very, very slim margin, but 2 seed nonetheless. And they obviously think the world of Jalen Brunson. They make the Anunoby trade. Now they go and get Mikal Bridges, and they go and get Karl-Anthony Towns. And it's going to be interesting. You know, DiVincenzo was a very important piece for them last year. Julius Randle kind of looked upon as the first guy that got everybody kind of rolling back into the Knicks, but was probably wearing out his welcome anyway. Like, probably was going to end up elsewhere anyway. So in my mind, I look at this as a pretty positive trade for the New York Knicks. I mean, you get one of the best three-point shooting bigs that's out there in Karl-Anthony Towns that will seamlessly fit in. You saw last year on a Minnesota team that was really, really good, that this guy had to fit in with Rudy Gobert, which was a little bit weird. I'm more curious about this, honestly, from the Wolves standpoint than I am the Knicks. I think the Knicks kind of makes all the sense in the world for me, because the Julius Randle piece felt like it was going to run its course anyway. So, yes, they have to get a guy who makes a little bit more money. They're invested in him. If it doesn't work out and he and Tibbs butt heads again and he doesn't really fit into their culture, there are those elements. I mean, I think Karl-Anthony Towns isn't exactly proven himself to be the guy who can get you over the top, but I don't think that he is as detrimental a piece either. So I'm curious to see what this Knicks team is. I definitely think that what they have needed is what they've gotten in another feature scorer. He could do some real questionable stuff on the court sometimes, which is maybe why Minnesota was ready to be off the ship, even though he's, kind of been the face of their franchise up until the Ant thing. Ultimately, though, I think that the Knicks getting Karl-Anthony Towns, I think, is a pretty interesting swing for them, considering where they were with Julius Randle. That was probably going to go somewhere else anyway. He was probably not going to be on the team anyway, because if you thought about how the roster was lined up. Now, the Divincenzo thing is a little bit interesting because we were kind of sold on this whole Villanova thing, and they got rid of him and not Josh Hart. And that's definitely that's a take. That's interesting. I know Josh Hart's like their heartbeat intangibles guy who can kind of throw himself anywhere, ruiner of Jimmy Butler's ankle. So that one to me is interesting, especially the fact that he wasn't really, I guess, happy, that he seemed like he was pretty rats off a ship on being on this team anyway. So definitely a fascinating spot there, and to see if he's going to stick in Minnesota, if they're going to keep him in Minnesota, will be interesting. Now, from Minnesota's standpoint, they had said that their report is they want to keep this as a place where Anthony Edwards has a window of more than a couple of years, which there's obviously a lot of weird stuff that seems to be around the Wolves, and for them to have this type of a trade, you got to be pretty damn sure that it's going to work out. Like Naz Reid's fantastic, 6th man of the year. You give him more of a role, cool. But this is a little bit of an interesting one because, one, man, they just did one of the pillars of their franchise pretty dirty, which would seem like it's not like they traded him to a bad location, but to give him no heads up, no warning. You always wonder how those things are going to work out for a team. And I'm definitely curious to see, like, what does this mean for Anthony Edwards? How does he take this? And does it work? That when you're that good as they were last year, to take a big change like this is an interesting procedure. And one has to wonder, if it doesn't work, what does that mean for the future of Anthony Edwards with the Minnesota Timberwolves? Now, obviously, money has gotten crazy in the NBA. Maybe he just re-ups and keeps taking guaranteed money, taking guaranteed money. But, there is some other stuff in the ether of, like, the ownership change. If A-Rod doesn't get the team, I know Levitard's kind of given some voice to this. If it doesn't work out, and let's say Glenn Taylor keeps the team, does this start leading some breadcrumbs to Anthony Edwards being rats off a ship with the Timberwolves? We'll have to keep an eye on it. We certainly mentioned this summer, Bam, Spo, very chummy with Ant-Man. And one would have to wonder if they are able to get in the game, so to speak, should this blow up. Again, I'm not expecting that to happen this year. As I've said many times with the Anthony Edwards thing, that is a 2-3 year down the road thing. I do not think this is something that is going to happen this season. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen in the summer of this upcoming summer. But eventually, if the Wolves don't take steps forward and he sees the Thunder taking steps forward, one will wonder, like, all right, how much more is he going to do with this? So that's the big picture ESPN NBA stuff that everybody's going to be focused on. Now, for the Heat standpoint, okay. Heat fan, I'm sure, is annoyed because every time your rivals make a move, you're going to be irritated. And I don't think this is one of those where you're unwarranted in being annoyed because many Heat fans have wanted some change. They see the Celtics, their top two guys, they go and make big swings around their moves and keep going back to the well till it's done. The Bucks, even with Giannis, should be happy with the situation. They go and they are taking swings. Maybe and sometimes these things don't work out. The Pacers, they go get Pascal Siakam. They're going to get moves around their guys. The Knicks, they have made a bevy of moves. They have basically changed the entire core around Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart. So you look at all of these guys and these teams making moves, and the Miami Heat sitting here and hoping for internal growth from their teams and, essentially the Terry Rozier wild card. What is Terry going to be like? Which, fine. But obviously, Terry Rozier's never been an all-star. He's a very nice player. He's not a star. Does that mean he can't be excellent for Miami? No, it doesn't mean that. But he's not done in the league with Karl-Anthony Towns or OG Anunoby or Pascal Siakam or any of these guys. He's not in the caliber, or even a Kristaps Porzingis or a Drew Holiday. He is not in any of those. Damian Lillard, he's not in any of those categories. Just hasn't been. That's just what his basketball resume is. So the Heat fans going to be annoyed by this, especially if they finish this Eastern Conference basically standing pat. Doesn't mean the Heat can't make a move at some point this season. Obviously, it's a little bit of a touch-and-go situation. We'll see where things stand with everything, how they start this season, where things are with Jimmy Butler, where are they with the big picture of their team, lots of that. So the other part of this on the Heat, there actually was some Heat fodder in relation to the Karl-Anthony Towns, Julius Randle deal, and that was, according to Ian Begley from SNY, Miami was one of 3 teams that New York also talked to about trades for Julius Randle. He tweets, Detroit, Atlanta, Miami, among the other teams the Knicks talked to about trades of Julius Randle per SNY sources. Minnesota slashes its future payroll by acquiring Randle, who could be a free agent this summer. The Knicks get a big man who they have long had on their radar. His former agent runs the Knicks. So that is that's this is one of those that really hasn't. It's been a loud secret. Everybody's kind of realized Karl-Anthony Towns to the Knicks. It's always been something that's been there. But the Heat not being interested in Julius Randle, but the Knicks offering Julius Randle. I wonder, part of me is curious, what were they interested in on the Heat's roster? Because if you look at this deal, Julius Randle makes about $30 million. If you go and we look at Donte Divincenzo and you want to do that trade, he makes about $12 million. It's not perfect, but it's you're still about like $8 million shy, but you're getting to Jimmy Butler neighborhood. So were the Knicks trying to trade for Jimmy Butler, knowing all of the things that are surrounding him, surrounding the Heat, his relationship with Tom Thibodeau? Was that the target the Knicks were trying to do with the Julius Randle trade? That, to me, has to be the target here. If you're just going with a straight Randle trade, is it possible that they were looking into a Tyler Hero? Because Tyler Hero and Randle make about the same amount of money, and they could have said, hey, we'll take Tyler Hero. You get off the books for Julius Randle next year. Did they possibly talk something about that? Can't rule that out. It's a little bit of a weird fit for that team. Thinking about what their backcourt is already kind of established. But if they knew DiVincenzo was going to be upset and look for somebody else, would they have found somebody who maybe would have been a little bit more harmonious to the whole thing? Hadn't been with the Knicks. There's not necessarily that team baggage there. So I'm glad that he didn't pull the trigger either way. I'm not the biggest Julius Randle fan in the world. As far as him being like a monster difference maker for Miami, he's a fine player. We all remember the Jimmy Butler, like pouty face at him, and certainly there's been some interesting battles. I think Heat fans have a little bit of a ire at him just simply because of that dummy Brandon Tierney from WFAN who said that he was better than Chris Bosh at his peak just because he was like the first good Knicks player they had since Carmelo Anthony. And that's what, look, there's no overrated quite like New York Knicks overrated. So if I had to guess, a Julius Randle trade calling up the Miami Heat who are looking to clear salary, my guess is they were going to try and work some kind of a package to inquire about getting Jimmy. That's the one that makes too much sense. The Tyler thing, I could kind of see that if they knew the Divincenzo thing was percolating. But my best guess is they were inquiring about the Heat to try and get Jimmy Butler to the Knicks. And I've said, like, look, if Jimmy Butler was going to leave and there was going to be a team that made all the sense in the world, it would break all of our hearts. The New York Knicks are one of them. Like, the idea that Jimmy's agent and Jimmy's people are kind of like fluffing the Nets thing, like, yeah, but it's a little bit less pressure on it because all the Heat fans are probably gonna be looking like, well, okay, that's just leaving for the money. You're not leaving for a contender. If Jimmy Butler would actually go to the New York Knicks and get them over the top, you want to talk about a dagger to the Miami Heat franchise, and I think the Heat know this. That's why they probably didn't go this route with the Julius Randle trade. And again, I am completely speculating here. I'm just looking at numbers on a chart. I'm saying, like, what could they have possibly wanted for Julius Randle, especially based on what they got for Julius Randle, and what would they have wanted off the Heat's roster? And I think they know they're not going to get Bam Adebayo. So I'm looking at Jimmy and I'm looking at Tyler. Like, those are the guys that I'm looking at and saying, okay, those were the guys that they were targeting. And my best guess is with the Tom Thibodeau team and Tom Thibodeau loving his guys, there was some kind of mechanism the Knicks were trying to work here to get Jimmy Butler to the New York Knicks for Julius Randle and something. And the Heat said no. They were not interested in that, which I can't exactly blame them. I would be ready to jump through a window if you told me that the Heat traded Jimmy Butler for Julius Randle. I don't think I could have handled the reaction to that. That being said, didn't happen. It's just kind of post-trade fodder. But it was interesting to see, like, out of all of the fallout from all this, that the Miami Heat apparently were offered by the Knicks the opportunity to trade for Julius Randle. We just don't know what was the thing that the Knicks were most interested in getting back for Julius Randle. But I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure out they probably wanted Jimmy Butler for him.